Hi everyone, thank you so much for tuning in. If you don't know who I am, my name is Debbie and I'm a registered kinesiologist. Now I began making some of these exercise videos so that I can share them with my clients. I truly believe that exercise is one of the best things that we can do for our health. Sometimes we just need a little bit of guidance to get us started. Today what I want to talk about is back pain. I'm going to be showing you 3 exercises, often referred to as the McGill Big 3, because they've been widely researched by the guru of back pain, McGill. Now, these exercises are a great way to improve core strength and stability, all while minimizing risk of injury, of course, when done correctly. Now, I'll be showing you these 3 exercises along with some modifications you can do. But before we do that, I want to talk a little bit about back pain. Back pain is something that is very common today. If we haven't experienced it, we might experience it at some point in our life. So this is why these exercises are so important. We often think of back pain developing from, heavy work, a lot of lifting and improper lifting, but that's not always the case. Sometimes our lifestyle can also lead to back pain. A common misconception when it comes to back pain is that the best way to heal it is to rest. Now, of course, rest is really important. If we've had a back injury and there might be some sort of swelling in the area, now we want to, of course, allow the body some time to heal and recover after we've had a back injury. But if it's been a couple of weeks and we're still experiencing some kind of back pain, just that rest alone is not going to make it go away. We're going to be waiting quite a while. And what tends to happen with a lot of people is that they get into this cycle of back injury, rest, and then go back to doing what they were doing before. So if we're not addressing the reason for the back injury in the first place, this back pain is going to keep reoccurring. So our goal today is to work on strengthening our core. And a lot of times when we say core, people think of, just our abdominal muscles or, the 6-pack muscles. But that's not the only thing that is included in our core. Our core is all of the muscles in our middle that help support and stabilize the spine. So it's the muscles that run up and down our back. It's even the muscles that are in our hips. So the exercise that we're going to be doing is going to focus on all of those muscles to help stabilize and create a nice, strong core. Now, the first exercise we're going to be doing is called a modified curl-up. Now, you'll notice that I'm sitting here on the floor. It's important to have a nice flat surface for this exercise. And if you can't get onto the floor, that's perfectly fine as well. You can do this on a nice firm couch or even on your bed. Now, this is a version of a sit-up. The sit-up is kind of the most common exercise for the abdominal muscles, and you see people do these all the time, hands behind the head, and they're really kind of coming up into that sit-up position. Curl-up is just a different variation of a sit-up, but this is a much better way to do it without having to put any strain on your back. So what you're going to do here is you're going to lie down on your flat surface. You're going to keep one leg straight and you're going to keep the other leg bent. So when you lie back, what you're going to do in order to support your back is you're going to keep your hands underneath the curve of your low back. So one leg straight, the other leg bent. I'm going to keep my hands underneath my low back here. Now, if you don't have the shoulder mobility to do this position, you can always just put a towel underneath your low back. You just want to keep the natural curve of the spine, so you actually don't want to flatten your body straight down to the floor. You want to keep that slight curve in your low back. So with your hands behind your low back, one leg straight, the other leg bent, what you're going to do is you're going to come up just a few inches off the floor and then back down. So when you're doing this exercise, you want to really initiate that movement more from the chest. So a common cue that I give to people is that when you're coming up, I want you to imagine that I have a string on your chest and I'm just pulling you up. So you should be only coming up a few inches off the ground, enough space so that I can slide my hand underneath your shoulder blades. So I'll show you again here. One leg straight, the other leg bent. Now, it doesn't really matter here here which leg is bent or which leg is straight. This position just helps us to keep a nice neutral spine when we're lying down. So hands underneath my back here. And what I'm going to do, I'm imagining I have a string on this chest, and instead of coming up with my head first or my neck, I'm going to come up with my chest. So just lifting up a couple inches and then coming back down. So again, remember, just enough space so that you can slide something underneath my shoulder blades and coming back down. One more. Now, if this exercise is done right, you're going to really feel this in your abdominal muscles in the front here. So all it takes is that slight movement, just that little curl up, as opposed to the other version of a sit-up where a lot of that motion is coming from momentum and not from strength. So we're really focusing on these muscles, slight movement, and we're just coming up a few inches off the ground. The second exercise we're going to do is called the side plank. Now again, you're going to need a flat surface for this, something sturdy, so either the floor, a firm couch, or bed. The first exercise really focused on the strength of the abdominal muscles in the front of the body. This next exercise focuses more on stability of the spine. So being able to create stiffness in our core in order to support our spine. And this is so important in everyday life. Every time we move, pick something up, we need to be able to create that stiffness in our spine in order to protect ourselves from injury. So the side plank here, we're gonna lie on our side here. And I'm gonna show you two different variations here on the floor. And I have one last final variation that we can do also standing. So the most advanced version of the side plank, you have your legs straight out in front of you, and what you actually want to do is you don't want to stack your feet right on top of each other. You want to put one foot, specifically the foot that's on top, you can put that in front of your bottom foot. So I'm going to set myself up, one foot in front of the other. I'm going to lie down on my side. And what I want to do here is I want to make sure that my elbow is directly under my shoulder so that I have more support here. If my elbow was out to the side, this can put a lot of strain on the shoulder. So I'm going to make sure that my elbow is directly underneath my shoulder here. I'm going to align myself so that I'm in one straight line. And then what I'm going to do when I'm ready is I'm going to come up to the side, and I'm just holding myself in this position here. So really using my core muscles to stabilize myself. And then I'm going to come back down. So that version from the feet is the hardest version, and if you do have a shoulder injury, this can actually put a lot of strain here. So the other option, you can bend this bottom leg. That way, this bottom leg is now going to support more of your body weight. And this is a good place to start. If you're doing this exercise for the first time, starting from the knees is actually a good idea. And then you can work out the tolerance until you can do this from your feet. But from the knees here, same thing, elbow underneath the shoulder. I'm going to just put my hand on my hip here so that I can line myself up, and I'm going to come up off the ground. So more of my weight is now being supported by this lower leg, but I'm still using my core here to keep myself in one nice straight line. And then come back down. Now, when you do this exercise for the first time, what I suggest is holding that position for about 8 to 10 seconds. So you're just seeing where your tolerance is and your strength. Because if this is something you've never done before, or if those muscles aren't used to working in that way, you're going to find this very challenging. You're going to feel those muscles starting to shake right away. So work up in tolerance. Aim for 8 seconds or 10 seconds. Give yourself a little rest. Flip over and do the other side, and then come back and do that again. The next time you do this exercise, you may be able to hold that for a little bit longer, so you can aim for 15 seconds. And you're just going to work your way up in that manner until you can hold this for 30 seconds or more. If doing the side plank isn't an option on the floor or on a couch or a firm mattress, another option can be to do a side plank against the wall. Now, this is a good alternative if you have had a shoulder injury and you can't put any weight on the shoulder. Now, to do the side plank against the wall, what you're going to do is you're going to stand beside the wall about a foot or two away. Now, the further away from the wall, the harder this is going to be. So you might just want to start within 1 foot away. You're going to place your arm against that wall. And again, same thing, you want to make sure your elbows, shoulders are in line, and you're just going to support yourself there. So in this position, you're still using this core, especially if you're pressing against that wall, because you're using those muscles to keep your body from dipping towards it. So you want to make sure you stay in that straight line. And then again, if you're not really feeling much in this position, you can kind of stand a little bit further away from the wall. So as you walk your feet away from that wall, you're going to have to use more of those muscles to keep your body in a straight line and not dipping in. So we want to stay nice straight line from the head all the way to your toes. The last exercise we're going to do is something called the bird dog. Now, this is a great stabilization exercise. As you're going to see here next, is that because we have different limbs moving throughout this exercise, we have to use our core a lot more to really stabilize the spine and keep it nice and straight. Now, again, I'm here on the floor and I'm going to show you how to do the full version of the bird dog first. But if you can't get on and off the floor, or if putting a lot of weight on your knees or shoulders is not an option, you can also do this standing, and I'll show you in the next modification. Now, to do the full bird dog on the floor, what we're going to do is we are going to set ourselves up in a tabletop position. So the tabletop position means that we're going to support ourselves on our hands and our knees. And what I often say to people in this position is I want you to imagine that I am trying to balance a glass of water on your back. So you really want to try and straighten out your spine as much as possible, because what I often see is we kind of get into the position and we're curled up like this. So we're going to drop the shoulders down. Again, same idea. We want, the wrists to be directly underneath the shoulders here so that we're supporting those. Knees below the hips. And now that I'm in a nice straight line, again, I don't want my shoulders to be up here, so I'm going to relax my shoulder blades down, straighten out my back. And then from here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to move my limbs. So I'm focusing on opposite arm and opposite leg. Now, if you're doing this exercise for the first time, you can just start off by just moving your arms. So when you move your limb, your arm, your leg, whatever it might be, away from your body, it requires force and the muscles to stabilize the spine in order to keep that position. Now, if I didn't have that strength, what might happen as I lift my arm up is I might start to twist, I might start to lose my position here. So we really want to focus on these muscles, and with intention, we're reaching forward with one arm, and then slowly back down. Now, to make this a little bit more challenging, we're going to use both the arms and the legs. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to lift my left arm out, and I'm going to straighten out my right leg. Now, when you're doing this, you want to make sure that you're still looking down at the ground in front of you. You don't want to be looking out towards your hand, because what happens when you're looking out towards your hand is now you're losing that natural curve in the spine. So, hands underneath the shoulders, knees underneath the hips. I'm looking straight down in front of me, and I'm just going to start with my left hand out, right leg back, and then coming back down. Same thing, we're going to switch sides, and you're really focusing on stabilizing that back. This takes some balance, so when you do this for the first time, as you reach out, you might start to tip one way or the other, but what we really want to avoid is we want to avoid the hips opening up. So, I'll demonstrate here. A lot of times we start to open up with the hips this way. So remember that glass of water that I have on your back. You don't want to spill any drops of that water, so keep that back nice and straight, and really focus on those arms and the legs. So with power, we're coming up, and you know, when it comes to exercise, intention does actually make a difference. So when you're bringing your arms up, really imagine that you have power coming up through the arms, through the fingertips, almost like you're trying to power wash through the wall in front of you. Same thing with the legs. We want to create that power, that strength as we come up, so that we're engaging the core. All of our power really comes from our core muscles. So now when you do an exercise like this, we want to really focus on creating that nice, strong core. Strength turns into stability, so that when we're doing everyday tasks, we can really be comfortable in knowing that our core is strong and can support our spine throughout the day. Now we're going to be doing the bird dog modification with the help of a chair. So I have a chair here just to support me. And this is important if you can't put any pressure or weight on your wrists, knees, or your shoulders. So while standing, you're going to hold onto the back of the chair for some support. Again, you want to make sure that you're standing, nice and tall. You don't want to be in a slumped position, so make sure you're standing nice and tall here. And if you like, what you can do is you can just start with the arms. Now remember, anytime you're moving your limbs away from your body, you need to activate your core in order to stabilize your spine, or else without that, what tends to happen is that, we have no strength here. Nothing to support our spine. So you can start with just the arms here, just to get the movement, and then what you're going to do is you're going to add the legs. So we're doing opposite arm, opposite leg. So if we're doing the left arm out, we're going to bring the right leg behind us. And then same thing, we're going to switch sides. So we're still focusing a lot of our attention to our core here. When we're doing this movement, we want to avoid any kind of overreaching that might cause some tension or some discomfort in the low back. So you want to keep this movement just nice and small and focus on this core here. The next variation of this bird dog that I like to teach is a great option for those who can support their body weight with their wrists and their shoulders, but maybe just have a hard time getting on and off the floor because of their hips or their knees. So using the chair, what we're going to do is we're going to bring ourselves into a tabletop position like we would have done on the floor, but instead we're going to support our hands on the chair. So we're going to go ahead and support our hands here, and same thing applies. We want the wrists to be underneath the shoulders here so that we're stacking our joints. And then in this position, we can then go ahead and focus on the bird dog. So remember, with intention, we're still looking down directly in between our hands, and we're going to bring the opposite arm and opposite leg. So still imagining that I have that glass of water on your back. You're going to keep that back nice and straight. So when we bring those arms and legs, we don't want to open up. It still requires a little bit of balance here with this movement, but that comes with practice. And the more you do this exercise, the more you're going to build that strength in the core. That's a wrap. The Stuart McGill Big 3 with modifications. I took a little bit extra time in this video to show those different versions, because if you look on YouTube, there's actually a lot of videos about the Stuart McGill Big 3, but if we can't exactly do the moves as they show it, we need to be able to work our way up. So pain is all about tolerance. So when we have pain, it's because we've crossed that threshold of what our body can tolerate. So if you feel pain during any of these exercises, you can go to the modified version, and even if you're doing the modified version and it doesn't feel quite right, you can skip that exercise altogether. Focus on the exercises that do work for you until you can build up that tolerance or that threshold. Our body really is an amazing thing, and the more that we learn about it, the more that we do these exercises, we can really amaze ourselves in what is possible. So again, I hope you enjoyed this. If you have any suggestions for further videos, let me know down below, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye!